Hello, everybody. Welcome to Service and Sacrifice this week. I'm Ryan Peterson. We thank you for joining us here on WTEN Plus. And as always, you know who's here, because if you've been watching, we've been doing this a little while now. Emil Baker, Dom Dominguez. Gentlemen, hello. How's your summer?
Going good.
Yeah?
It's going good.
I've had a little bit of beach time so far. Managed to get to Cape Cod for a couple days. Other than that, been, when I can, hanging out by the pool with the kiddos.
I'm annoyed that I haven't been able to make it to his new boat.
Knew it was going to
See,
come up.
all
I
right,
was
now
waiting
see,
for
I'm
one of you
usually the
guys
one
to
to
bring
bring
it
it
up.
up, you know?
He said it was.
I was pausing
The
on
boat
purpose.
invite.
He said he forgot it when he was in Florida. I don't understand that.
Yes,
No.
I've been on the boat and it's been great. I've been loving it.
Getting some golf in?
I haven't golfed as much as I want to. I think it's been like 2-3 weeks since I've been golfing, but I've been boating.
Really?
Yeah, I've been boating
Yeah,
a lot.
all right.
I cut grass. That was,
Do you?
and I had to recover for a whole day after that. Yeah.
It's a lot. Mowing the lawn in this heat. It's not fun for anybody. Joining us this week, friend of both of yours. I didn't mean to hit the microphone. Sorry if that made a noise. Retired U.S. Army Colonel Richard Goldenberg, who is now the Director of Military History up at the New York State Military Museum in Saratoga Springs. And we've spoken with folks from there before, Dom. It's a wonderful resource. If you've never been, it's really worth checking out.
Yeah, health, history, horses, history. Saratoga's got a ton of it. And this military museum has it all. It's really pinpoints New York service members and what they did in every conflict. It's everything from, I feel like everything from the Revolutionary War to our latest war, our modern war with the global war on terror. They have everything in there. It's cool. It's free. It's a hidden gem right outside of Saratoga on 61 Lake Avenue. And I don't know, it's neat. It's a great place for veterans to congregate and talk about their service. It's a great place to learn about the different wars and conflicts and different types of New York service members that served. And I don't know, I just think it's really cool.
I'd never been. I did a little research for this online, and I'm just fascinated by the things that were there. And it's a place I'd like to go when the summer traffic is over in the fall or the winter, but I am going to go take a look at it.
But you talk about, and it's not just a museum, it's also a Veterans Research Center as well.
It's really cool. Yeah, I think Colonel Goldenberg, or Rich, as we call him now that he's out of the service, he has a research team, and you can call the librarian and set up an appointment. And if you have mom, dads, grandpa, grandmas, a little cardboard box with medals in there and all that stuff, you can make an appointment and talk to some of the research team, and they can maybe even teach you something about what your parents or grandparents did, or your husband or spouse or wife did. And it's really cool that we can really store our history, specifically our New York history. Right. So I think it's worthwhile.
And what's great, and what you'll hear from Rich in a second, he'll talk about it towards the end of our time with him, but trying to compile those oral histories, especially from some of our veterans who are very few and far between now, from the greatest generation in World War II, sitting down with them and recording them, whether it's straight up audio or a piece of video, to hear their stories. And eventually that will all be compiled into an exhibit where you'll actually be able to go and listen to these veteran stories, which I think is phenomenal.
It's really cool.
Yeah. All right, so we want you to stay right there, because when we come back, Rich will be joining us, talking a little bit about his military history and certainly much more about his job now with the New York State Military Museum. Don't go anywhere. You're watching Service and Sacrifice here on WTEN Plus. Welcome back, everybody, to Service and Sacrifice this week. I'm Ryan Peterson here on WTEN Plus. Joining us now, our special guest this week, Colonel Richard Goldenberg of the U.S. Army, who is now the Director of Military History, correct, at the New York State Military Museum in Saratoga Springs.
That's correct. Come up and see us.
Thanks for coming in today. We appreciate it. Nice to see you. So, Rich, talk to me a little bit about your backstory. Where are you from, and what brought you to the Army?
Well, I've been in Schuylerville now for just over 25 years. Had a long military career with the United States Army and Army National Guard, 10 years active, and then another 26 years in the National Guard here in New York. Proud to say that for those who can think that far back, I was a veteran of the ice storm of 1998. That was actually my very first support element for the New York National Guard, getting a phone call when I was still living just outside Fort Drum, New York, telling me I'd been called to state active duty for the emergency response. Of course, my first question was, what is state active duty? And in the following 26 years, as most New Yorkers know, there's been a long laundry list of activations, response efforts, overseas deployments. Coming off of the active duty of the 10th Mountain Division, I thought the National Guard might have been a nice way to take a break for things, and the 26 years after that has been nonstop. Completing that career in 2024, I was very proud to be tapped just this past winter to be the Director of Military History at our New York State Military Museum in Saratoga Springs.
Wonderful. Talk to me a little bit about your service. When you first went in, you had some deployments overseas. Where were you?
The largest obviously one is the combat deployment to Iraq, 2004 to 2005. That was as a member of the New York Army National Guard's 42nd Infantry Division, that headquarters based right here in Troy, New York. I'd served on the staff of that headquarters up in Tikrit, Iraq, on the presidential compound for Saddam Hussein. It was a very interesting experience, but we're very proud of the time that we spent there because that was the year that the Iraqis themselves had a chance to rewrite and then vote on their new constitutional referendum. So it was the groundwork, for those who can remember that far back, it was the groundwork for them putting themselves on a path for their new constitutional republic.
What brought you to military service, Richard? Do you have family members that had served? What was kind of your inspiration?
Well, I was one of those college students that happened to stop by a recruiting table in my younger years. My dad had served in the Marine Corps Reserve in his younger years, so I was immediately drawn to the United States Marine Corps recruiting table. I was a college student in Boston at the time, and the recruiters were very happy to talk me into a potential officer career with the Marine Corps Reserve or the Marine Corps. The only problem they told me was that they weren't here on the campus I was on. They were across town, and that it was a matter of jumping on the subway and then taking a bus. And I looked right next to the Marine Corps Reserve, and there was the Army ROTC table, and they said, "Hey, we're right here on campus. You could roll out of bed at 6 a.m. and join us for first formation without too much trouble at all." And so that started my application and service with the United States Army.
Wonderful. So we often talk about here on the show, given the representation with Dom here and the VA, the importance of the VA, the importance of our veterans taking advantage of what the VA has to offer. Have you taken advantage of the VA since you've left service, and what can you say to our young servicemen and women out there about the benefits of it?
One of the best things that I tell younger service members, those still in uniform today, is the best gateway into the support network that's available in the community is through the VA. Mm-hmm. And I learned that because when I returned from my deployment, the VA was there. They registered every single one of us coming back from Iraq to make sure we were part of the system. And what they advised then is what we advise now is you may not need it today and you may not think you want it tomorrow, but getting into the system is important because when you finally do want to elect for some of those services and sign up for those available programs, you're already part of the VA family.
How about that? That's exactly what the two of these guys say week in and week out here, right?
Yeah. You could say it all day, every day. You'll still find veterans out there who don't elect to get their health care from the VA Medical Center. They wait till they're 90. They're in their dying, they're in their bed dying, and then, their daughter, their grandkids are saying, "How do we get Grandpa into the VA?" It's impossible at that point. It's almost near impossible. So doing what you just said, Rich, is exactly it. That's the key.
And it is a challenge because if you think of that cohort of veterans that return over the past 20, 25 years during the global war on terror, bunch of young men, young women, and they think that it's not really something that they need at this time. They come back, they go back to their jobs, their families, they kind of want to build their lives.
Sure.
And they don't really recognize that that's the perfect time to be signing up for the VA, to learn about the benefits, to learn about the programs, and just file them away.
Mm-hmm.
And I waited 40 years, and the thing didn't want to use up benefits that other people needed that I could afford to take care of myself. And I found that by signing up and becoming part of that you actually help them with finances, help them to get more money to help other vets. So please, everyone, do it as fast as you can.
Yeah, it's every generation passing it on from one to the next. So, I mean, in 2004, 2005, now 21 years ago. But at that time, it was the Vietnam veteran generation that was welcoming back Iraq and Afghanistan vets and making sure that these new generation of veterans understood what was available to them and how they should be brought back home to their families, to their communities, and how the VA should be responsive to a new generation of needs. Maybe back in the 1960s, having OBGYN services wasn't as big a priority at the VA, but we've learned over that generation of passing that that's now a priority when, a good substantial portion of our veterans population are women.
Good stuff. Hold that thought. When we come back, we're going to have more with Colonel Goldenberg, and we're going to talk a lot more about the New York State Military Museum, what they've got going on, and how you can take advantage and check out the exhibits that are up there in Saratoga Springs. We'll be right back after a quick break here. Service and Sacrifice on WTEN+. Welcome back to Service and Sacrifice here on WTN Plus this week. Joined once again by our special guest this week, retired U.S. Army Colonel Richard Goldenberg. Rich, let's get into the New York State Military Museum now. You are now the Director of Military History at the museum. For folks who aren't familiar, what is it all about up there? What can they see? What can they check out?
Well, the best thing I would relay to your viewers and to the folks in the community is that you can't miss us if you're near downtown Saratoga Springs. You make that turn right on Lake Ave, and there's a castle right in front of your view. And if the castle doesn't catch your eye, the Sherman tank parked out front will definitely grab your attention. And the best thing I'd like to tell folks is that the armory itself is one of our historic artifacts. For 135 years, that building has been part of the New York National Guard. It's seen its citizen soldiers come through those doors. They've deployed to war from the Saratoga Armory. Spanish-American War, World War I, World War II. So there's history just walking in our doors. And you get a sense of what it was like for those many generations of traditional and part-time citizen soldiers serving for the New York National Guard and what their lives were like. The exhibits that we've put out on the floor cover all the periods of American conflict. Proud to say that we're working this summer on the Global War on Terror, which will be our latest permanent exhibit, and that will highlight the contributions of New Yorkers over the past 25 years as we ramp up for this September's commemoration on 9/11. We want to be able to gather in the artifacts, the narratives, the stories of the contributions of New Yorkers from across the state and their roles, whether it was Iraq, Afghanistan, or some other corners of the globe.
And, we find ourselves in the middle of the 250th birthday of these United States right now. And, of course, next year will be a big year for the end of the Revolutionary War, which is so rich in history around here in upstate New York.
Yeah, I mean, I like to tell the visitors who come through our doors that, yes, we celebrate the Declaration of Independence this summer, but that was a piece of paper. And really turning that piece of paper into reality on the ground was really the impact of the battles that occurred at Saratoga.
And what can they see at the museum that honors that history?
Well, we have a Revolutionary War exhibit, which compiles the major battles and accomplishments of New York activities. New York was one of the central tenets of the Revolutionary War. We're sort of the gateway to New England if you're coming down from Canada or coming up from New York City. So the Hudson River itself was a strategic, vital asset. And, of course, the battles that were fought here by Washington down in and around New York City and by General Gates here and around Saratoga. were pivotal in both ensuring the success and longevity of the Continental Army and of the long-term diplomatic success for the Continental Congress in gaining key French allies.
Well, called Turning Point for a reason, right? I live in a neighborhood up in Stillwater that's called Turning Point
That's
for
exactly true.
a reason. Yeah. So what do people need to know if they're coming to visit and they're up here for the summer? Is there admission to the museum? What do they need to know?
The museum's open Tuesdays through Saturdays, 10 to 4. It is free admission for all of our guests. We are both a exhibit display for the museum staff and a Veterans Research Center. Mm-hmm. So by appointment, you can reach out to our librarian staff, and they will do one-on-one coordination with your research efforts. Many folks from across New York State sadly are at the point now where they're finding the artifacts of their loved ones who have long since passed, either from the Greatest Generation or Korea, and they are trying to rebuild the narratives of what their loved one who was a veteran had done. And so my biggest takeaway for your listeners now is that if you do have a loved one who's a veteran in your family, record their stories now. Gather up their service records, learn about their medals, their awards, their achievements. Try to get them to talk or write down their efforts so that you're not trying to piece it together after they're gone.
Well, it's fantastic that you're doing that so people can listen to their actual voices, right? That's the idea behind that whole project.
Yeah, we had a large effort just over 20 years ago to collect oral histories of the World War II generation. And so we're very proud that we've been able to sit down with many of those veterans and then digitize and make it available on our online museum site.
Colonel, we thank you for coming in. Appreciate your time. And remember, if you want to check out the New York State Military Museum, it's right there in Saratoga Springs. You can't miss the castle and the tank.
You can't miss us at 61
Check
Lake
it
Ave.
out. All right, Rich, thanks so much. We're going to take another quick break here on Service and Sacrifice. We're back one last time here on WTN Plus right after this. Welcome back to Service and Sacrifice. Just wrapped up with Colonel Richard Goldenberg, the U.S. Army, retired now, of course, working for the New York State Military Museum. You know, Dom, what I loved, I got him to talk a little bit about right at the top, too, that I try to get out of a lot of our guests is the importance of the VA, right? And taking advantage of the benefits that they have to offer. And Rich really nailed it there, especially when it comes to the younger generation of veterans that are just starting to return home now.
Yeah, absolutely. Rich talked about being in the 42nd Infantry Division. Mm-hmm. These guys just got back from a deployment, and they have a yellow ribbon event coming up, I believe, either this month or next month. Guess who's going to be there? The VA Medical Center. Mm-hmm. So for those who don't know, and if you're serving and you're coming back from a deployment, anybody that comes back, any service member that comes back from a deployment is eligible for 5 years of free health care. Not just signing up for the VA Medical Center, but 5 free years of VA health care. So like Rich did, it's important to get yourself elected into the VA healthcare system and, research some of the specialty clinics and some of the programs that we have and take advantage of that. But definitely get yourself into the system.
Yes, I know, Emil, you've said before you wish you had taken advantage sooner, yes?
I waited 40 years, and that was my generation and the way we operated. But I strongly encourage everybody to do this because if you go in there, there is so much that's available. You have to study. You have to understand it and then pursue it. And these days with video and everything, research is a lot easier. And I strongly recommend everybody get in there, experience it, and learn what's good for them.
You know, one of the things about the museum, Dom, and I think I've heard you talk about it before too, some of the artifacts that are in there, and you have a favorite one, do you not?
I do, yeah. I was at a board meeting there a few months ago, and, I'm talking to some of the other board members, and I look to my left, and I see a top hat. But what caught my eye was a picture behind the top hat, and it's this young Jewish kid. Obviously, it was a service member from sometime back in the 1940s, and he's holding like a comb as a mustache, and he's got a top hat on him. And as and now, I look at the picture, I'm like, what is this? And I look at the actual display. It's Hitler's top hat.
Yeah.
And this young Brooklyn, service member from New York, obviously, apparently, they raided, Hitler's apartment, one of his apartments, and he took the top hat, and he was so angry he actually stomped on it. So, but it's there at the museum. It's kind of crunched from the stomping, but it's there. And the one thing that we learn with museums is that top hat has to go back into storage. So it's only so much time you'll be able to see that. But one of New York's service members found it, and it's great. Just to imagine that Hitler's top hat is in Saratoga Springs out on display, and it's one of our guys, a Brooklyn native service member, and that's amazing. We have to check out that museum. There's so much to it, not just the Revolutionary War, but just the global war on terror, Vietnam, Korean War, World War I and II. There's so much.
And the history of who came before us in the military is very important that we know and understand. And we were just the next generation of that military service.
But he was telling us, Rich was telling us when we wrapped up with him, we actually didn't get to it on camera, but as you were saying, that hat may be going out of rotation soon, back in storage for a time. So if you're interested in seeing Hitler's top hat, you got to get up there now. Maybe get up there before the summer's out to check it out. Our thanks once again to Rich. It was lovely of him to come in. Check out the New York State Military Museum, the old armory there up in Saratoga Springs, big castle-like building with a tank out front. You can't miss it. And we thank you, as always, for watching Service and Sacrifice here in WTEN+. As always, tell your friends, if you're on Roku, Apple TV, or Amazon Fire, go to the App Store on any one of those platforms. Download the WTEN+ app for free. Watch us every Friday morning at 11:30. We'll also post a link to the WTN YouTube page as well. And spread the word. Thanks for watching Service and Sacrifice. We'll see you next week.